So there's this idea that engineering designs something, tosses it over the wall, and the floor just builds it. Where does that fall apart in real life?
Probably understanding intent. So this whole thing of tossing it over the wall really says that the two teams, oh, excuse me. So the whole theory of tossing engineering over the wall and just having manufacturing build it really says that manufacturing doesn't need to ask any questions. They don't need to understand the design intent behind the design. It's pretty much self-explanatory, and there's no revisions needed. And you're like, okay, so when's the last time engineering could send something to manufacturing that didn't require any questions, comments, or concerns or design revisions? And you're like, I don't know. When's the last time we did that? Oh yeah, probably never.
Never.
Um, oh yeah, tossing things over the wall is great if you're so good at manufacturing on the design side that you never have to talk to manufacturing.
How many people actually achieve that? No one.
How many people? I would say probably the companies I engage with the most, probably it's 50-50 right now. I think the silos are being broken down, but then the question really comes into, are they really breaking them down effectively or not? Or are they just exacerbating a current siloed system just in a different way? Because trust me, there's still definitely things that they do without any consideration, and then they have to go in and fix changes.
Yeah, that you always pay for that, no matter what.
Yep. Oh yeah. And some of that too is just it's always gonna happen because we always make assumptions and think we know best. And then sometimes you don't know until you try. And so sometimes manufacturing has to say, you know what, we're going to give you our best guess, but we're not going to know the full details until we actually start cutting chips off the piece of metal and actually start getting some knowledge. And so that's really then the end goal is, well, how much knowledge can I get up front?
Yep.
Or what has to be done in the actual manufacturing shop? And it's understanding those details that is also going to help you out.
Can you explain the concept of the digital thread? Can you explain the concept of the digital thread? Like, I've never set foot in a factory, which is generally true because I don't really think that I have. What is actually threaded and why should a normal person care about this? And especially,
Right.
How does this get misconstrued? What is it really versus what is it called?
Yep. And I beg to differ. Everybody's been in a manufacturing floor. If you've ever been to fast food restaurants, what do you think a fast food restaurant is? They are nothing more than a production line.
Manufactured food.
So same manufacturing. In fact, when you do a point of sale at a fast food joint, guess what? When you customize your order, what do you think that is? That's actually a work order going through and being processed and being customized and being sent through the delivery system. So there's your number one.
Yeah.
You want quick and dirty manufacturing, fast food has figured it out. Now try to do that in something more complicated than your burger order. That's really the key is now you have to have somebody's designing the system that you want to do, whatever that might be. They're putting a lot of time, value, effort into the engineering behind it, making sure it's going to work. They understand the requirements, and they're going to build something that's quality and that the customer is going to want to buy. And then so the digital thread is like, okay, so now that engineering is done with it, how do I hand that off to manufacturing? Because then manufacturing has a whole different other set of requirements that they have to worry about. And they're using a totally different system. And not only that, they usually use a system that supply chain is also using because they have to procure the materials. And they also have to make sure that when we manufacture the item that we're capturing cost and how long it takes to do that and where it needs to be done. Because the ERP systems, it's called enterprise resource planning. And guess what? They sometimes need to plan the resources that are needed to manufacture.
Yep.
Just kind of like when, you get a burger order and you have to make sure that you got the guy who's going to make the patties and that the grill is actually available. Same thing with the French fries, that the deep fryer is working and there's somebody working the deep fryer. Same thing happens in manufacturing. We need to know that the available resources are there and what their current capacities are to know that what we can produce and when we can produce it. And so the digital thread is now, okay, we take that design, we hand that over to manufacturing, and then now they're going to input all of the data that they need to be successful, to procure the materials, to make sure that they have the capacity to make it and that they can make it within a certain cost And then not only that, then they have to track actual cost on the work order. So that way you can see, okay, so we thought it was going to cost this much. Are we really making money? And then they have to determine that, are we really making money selling this product or not? And that's really then the key of making sure that you hand off from engineering to manufacturing. They use two totally different systems. Engineering does the what you're going to produce, and manufacturing does the how you're going to produce it. And then those two systems are very much in their right, designed for what they need. And you have to make sure that the information you're sending that is accurate too.
Yep.
And so that's the digital thread, is making sure like, hey, there's nobody in the loop to type in this data. It should be sent by the system. So that way there's no chance for manual, mistakes, because trust me, if a person is in the loop, they will make a mistake sooner or later.
Yep.
And you see that all the time too, especially if you're dealing with a global company and one's using inches, the other one's using millimeters. They'll have conversion problems, and somebody will type it in and forget to convert it, and then you're going to get some major problems.
Yep. I think the two situations we're trying to avoid is either someone gives a complicated order and the guy in the back says we can't actually make that because we don't have the ingredients, or you go through the drive-through and you order something and it's been 5 minutes, it's been 6 minutes. They finally open the window and tell you to pull around. And 18 minutes later, they pull out the thing that they hadn't thawed, that they needed to thaw for you to actually get it. And no one told them, hey, we don't have these right now, so you can't actually fulfill this.
Right. Also, you need to know what the lead time is, you're saying.
Yep.
And if you don't understand your what's coming, how do you know how to properly prepare for the day or the week or the month or the year, whatever it might be? And so, understanding that is key, because especially like I deal with a lot of industrial equipment that long lead items can be 6 months or 18 months. And people were planning capacity for some of this stuff actually years in advance. And I mean, people deal about this all the time, especially like when you're buying a car. Your car dealership gets allocations. You're always and that's kind of allocation is kind of like doing demand planning ahead of time.
Yep.
And you have to make sure like, oh, hey, what's my dealer allocation? Because I may be wanting to buy something that's a hot commodity. And if my dealer doesn't have a lot of allocations, guess what? I might be out of luck.
Yep. You talk about sometimes data dying in a spreadsheet. Can you put that in real money, what that actually costs?
Yes, data dies all the time in a spreadsheet. And that's because guess what? A spreadsheet isn't connected to a system. So you think that spreadsheet is connected to live data?
Shocked
you are
face.
gravely mistaken. Yeah, what's my shocked face look like? And so I'd say it's the most difficult thing, is because everybody loves to do analysis in Excel spreadsheets. And I can be kind of sarcastic at times. And so I was in a conversation actually last week where I said, Excel is your best MES system. And the guy kind of looked at me kind of like, are you serious? I said, yeah, it's many Excel spreadsheets. It's the best MES system ever produced. And he thought I was being serious. I said, you know what? I get it. You don't know me very well. I can be very sarcastic. Apparently I pulled it off way too well. I said, it is the worst MES system ever.
Too dry.
Because you need a system that's visible and accurate and up to date.
Yep.
And while I've seen some people do some really good macros in their Excel spreadsheets to query external databases, guess what? Those don't work either. So try not to bury your data in Excel, because it will get out of date really quick. And also, guess what? There's probably many different copies of it. Nobody knows what's the latest copy. I don't care how good you are at your naming conventions on Excel spreadsheets and sheets within sheets, but it will never replace the visibility and accuracy of a database system that's kept up to date.
Yep. Can you walk me through the 400 change orders down to 40? Just walk me through that story. What was happening before, how that change came about, how you pushed it through.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I tell this story all the time, and it's just kind of great because people are always wondering, so what are the benefits of me doing some of this? Because I'm really bad at trying to figure out what's my ROI. Everybody needs ROI for improving. Everybody knows we got to do digital thread and digital transformation. Well, what's in it for me? What's in it for the company, actually? And how can I sell this to the boss? Okay, let's go down this story of an unintended benefit that a company got because they were pushing the boundaries of the digital thread and digital transformation. Well, they're like, well, we're gonna need to produce an ROI based on reduction of headcount, right? Because that's how they did every ROI of every project in previous history. And guess what? Nobody can actually prove that it saved heads. So therefore, when the project went live, they're like, guess what? This project was a financial failure. And lo and behold, but they all knew it was the right thing to do. Don't get me wrong. They all knew it was the right thing to do. Nothing stopped. It was still full steam ahead. 2 years later, they looked at the churn of the sustaining product and said, okay, well, we did this transformation. Before we did the transformation, we averaged, because this product line's it's a mature product line. It had been produced for more than a decade. So they had lots of history.
Yep.
And they said, on average, we produced about 400, 450 changes a year that manufacturing caught, because quality defects are usually caught on the shop floor. And then those then in turn led to engineering changes that had to happen. Some of them had to be turned around quickly, and some of them maybe not so quickly. So yeah, so they had an annual churn of about 450 changes. And then after doing this whole initiative, they said, okay, let's take a look at the ECNs. And they're like, oh, wow, what do you mean we only did 40 of them last year? And yeah, because we broke down the silos between engineering and manufacturing. Manufacturing is getting the most accurate, up-to-date information than they ever used to. Oh, and guess what? Manufacturing is now actually embedded in the design review process, and they build in quality as they're designing. Like, oh, wait, built-in quality? Somebody's actually doing built-in quality before it hits the shop floor. You're like, yes, manufacturing's included in the process. And so with that, they then drastically reduced the amount of changes they were doing per year, which then frees up engineering to do a lot more work than just sustaining that one product line, which then means as an engineer, I can actually do new designs for maybe a different product line or up something that's going to build the company revenue instead of just sustaining the existing product. And so that's what ended up happening is they found out that while they didn't reduce headcount, that actually they did because they were maintaining the product less and it freed up engineering to do other designs.
So if anyone's asking what the ROI is, we just keep pointing them back at this story over and over again.
Well, that's just one of them. And that's just such a great one because it was a proven metric that we solved.
Yep.
And it's a great one. It's like, hey, how, and it wasn't even a planned investment area. And they're like, oh, hey, and this is also why I'm like, keeping track of your data is so important because quite often whenever I go into a project, I always say, well, what are the metrics you currently track today? And most of the time you get like a whole bunch of blank stares. Like, I have no idea what metrics we currently track. I'm like, wait, you have no idea what metrics you track? Well, let's try to see what data we can get out of your system because we would badly want some sort of baseline data because you end up finding out that the basis of your return on investment sometimes comes in unexpected areas. And we want to make sure, hey, people always love to hear about the success. What we're going to go through is going to be some of the hardest stuff we do for your company. And it's going to be asking you to change the way people do business and change people's mentality and your business process. Let's actually try to celebrate some wins out of it because trust me, when people are in the trenches, it's so hard to see the wins. And then when we do post the wins later, even if it's years later, a lot of these people are like, wow, we did that? Are you serious? And then it's great ammunition to say, you know what, this is the value that we're making to the company because we're doing these initiatives and this is why. And without that benefit, then it's really hard to keep pushing forward for more changes. But if you do see the benefits, hey, that's a great way to champion this within the company, saying we are making amazing changes. You guys are responsible. Now, of course, it may say, then the guy's like, hey, excuse me, I was maybe I wasn't solely responsible for this, but I was responsible enough on a promotion. Be like, hey, that's just, people are always going to ask for that when they do good work. But I think the first thing is let's at least show that we do good work.
Yeah, I think about this, you're saying all this stuff to me, and it almost sounds like a pitch that a personal trainer would give to someone. Would say, hey, you're about to go through the hardest. You're about to go through the hardest, roughest period of your life. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be hungry. all this stuff. But whenever we come out of it, all of these things are going to be better. You're going to feel better. You're going to look better. You're going to sleep better. You're going to move better. Picking up boxes, moving them on a shelf, everyday life stuff, picking up your kids, not going to be a struggle for you. You know what I mean? And you're going to feel incredible, and you're going to live a long time. And if you told someone that and they were like, those are all the benefits I get from this thing, you're like, yeah. And they aren't even the thing that you're going for. You came to me looking for a different number on a scale. And now I'm telling you all of these other things you're going to get as a result. Just makes me think of that because it feels like the same thing. It's like, hey, this is going to take a bunch of work. This is going to involve a lot of people. It's going to change a bunch of things about how you do business. It's going to be painful, right? There's going to be a lot of change management. But the outcome isn't just going to be these KPIs that we're talking about. There's going to be so many other things that we're going to see. And if you let us track them, we'll literally show you in real time all these differences that happen.
Yep. Exactly. You're going to flex some business muscles you never knew you had.
Exactly. Which is painful at first, but then it's better. It's a good thing.
Yep.
Who feels this pain first in a company, and why do they always get ignored?
Oh man, I guess maybe which pain are you talking about?
The pain of tossing it over the wall and expecting everyone to get it and not actually having that back and forth communication between actually like removing the silos. Who feels that pain? Because people are feeling that right now that are listening to this. And I think it's important for them to understand how to advocate for what they actually need.
If you think about that real quick, who's feeling the pain first? It's the receiver of the package.
Yep.
It's kind of like, sometimes you feel like you just got a birthday present in the mail, or sometimes you feel like somebody just lobbed a grenade over the wall and it's all duck and run.
Yep.
So which one do you think you're getting first? A lot of times they probably feel like it's more like the grenade coming over the wall because they're quickly looking through the package to say, well, what in here is a ticking time bomb? And now I have to spend all this time reviewing and scrutinizing and requesting meetings and all kinds of feedback back and forth. Yep. So quite often it feels more like that than it does the Christmas present that you've just received. So nobody's cheering. Nobody's saying, I can't wait to open the package. They're all probably dreading. It's like, no, I can't look. You look first. Yeah. No, do I want to look? No. And so, trying to figure that. I mean, the more, and it really then comes down to how much upfront knowledge did they get? Because trust me, I've been an engineer before. I was really good at thinking I made the best toaster ever. Granted, I never made toasters, but let's just say it was a toaster. Yep. And I took that drawing, I sent it to manufacturing, and think they're all going to run around going, oh, hooray, he did make the best toaster ever. And then they come back and be like, those parts that you just designed, we can't actually produce those. And I'm like, what? You mean you don't have a 8-axis mill that can produce whatever I want? He's like, nope. He's like, the only way we could do that is we could 3D print it. The only problem is you made a toaster. And guess what 3D printing can't do? It can't print a material that can satisfy the heat requirements of your toaster. Nope. It's one of those things. So you're like, oh, okay, fine. Yes, I did not ask you about what your manufacturing capabilities are. Yep. So let's go back to the drawing board and see which parts I need to redesign. And so that's always the case. And the more upfront that the different siloed people can talk, the better. Because guess what? If as an engineer, I understand what the manufacturing capabilities are, the better engineer I'll be. And if manufacturing can kind of have a no, so they can influence as well. And they're like, hey, you know what? We just actually were looking at investing in some new manufacturing technology. What do you think about this capability? And you're like, oh, hey, that would be great. I would love for you to invest in that because then that's going to make me a better engineer because I can now produce something using that technology. It's like you like flame grilled burgers, right?
Oh, yeah.
So let's put in a new flame griller so that way we can make some better burgers.
100%. Let's increase the capacity to do these things so we can make it happen, right? Instead of, hey, I got an order for 20 flame grilled burgers. And they're like, that's not what we do. We have a flat top. Oh, all right. Awkward.
Yeah, right.
So shifting gears a little bit to one of our niches, one of our core people that we work with, talk about aerospace. Aerospace keeps products in service for a very long time. How does that change what connected data even has to do from the beginning of a time a product is in service all the way through its lifetime? especially talking about airframes. What does connected data have to do all throughout that lifetime? And how do we help in that process?
Yeah, no, that's a good question too, because it's also not just that we're producing good product the first time and getting that out the door, but it's like what happens to that during its life and when it's in the field. Because guess what? It might need to be serviced, overhauled, or repaired. And the better data I have on that as it enters the field, the better off the field is in maintaining that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means that there were certain deviations that had to be done while it was being manufactured for the as built condition. So it's not just that I received the design information, but it's did I actually then capture the as built condition? And what can I then do with the as built condition? Sometimes you say, oh, during the life of that, engineering might actually need that data because as it's being maintained or repaired in the field, sometimes they may say, well, okay, well, we need to do a major overhaul of this airframe because that's going to be cheaper than buying a new one. And like, okay, well, I need to see what the current configuration looks like. And then maybe you've sent that already back to the engineering system, or the engineering system can then say, well, just send me the latest information. And don't, guess what? Don't send it to me in an Excel file because I don't want it in Excel. And so then the more connected our systems are, the more we can close the loop on this whole data aspect of it. And that's also the thing too, because like people are like, oh, well, maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when things get swapped out in the field due to an emergency and nobody documented it, or maybe somebody did document it, but it never made it back to headquarters. They're like, how do you know what the current engine is that's installed? How do you know what fuel it needs to burn? All of that stuff can be really critical. So it's if somebody had to make an emergency change and said, oh, let's just say, for example, it was burning gasoline and it now had to switch to diesel burning. And engineering's like, well, we need you to send us new spare parts for the fuel pump. And engineering's like, okay, let me send you some spare parts for the fuel pump. And then they get it. And they're like, this is for a gasoline engine. We converted to diesel about 10 years ago. And you're like, oh, I didn't know about that. And then now you've just, guess what? Lost time and lost face with your customer because you didn't understand what the current as maintained unit was in the field.
Yep.
And so that's just all part of this whole connectivity and keeping track of it. Now, granted, it's a little different when there's really key areas like aerospace and defense and some industrial equipment and even med device that have to really worry about this. And usually it's those tightly regulated industries with long life products. It is difficult to try to solve some of those use cases, but guess what? You see some great returns on that investment. Because then what also happens too, so we're like, we did this really great job for a customer that said we had to upgrade their unit. So we had to design a custom upgrade for them due to whatever requirement they had. And how many other units in the field do we have that were similar that we can now resell that upgrade to somebody else? And you're like, the more you have that data, the more I can then resell that to somebody else and say, hey, we got this great new capability. All you need is this little kit. It's going to cost you X amount of dollars and it may improve your gas mileage per se. And oh, great. This is something I never knew I wanted, but now that I know you have it, I want it.
Yeah.
And so this is all great things that you have. And if you have the data at your fingertips, this enables you to do that and grow revenue for your business. And also maybe not just grow revenue, but grow trust with your customer base that they can come to you to help them.
Here's an interesting question that just popped in my head because I was thinking about airframes and their usage throughout a lifespan and how quite often anyone, whether it's the DoD or even airline companies, will make a retrofit for something because it's cheaper to retrofit an airframe that already exists in production than it is to make something new. And that got me thinking actually about this new trend with EVs or any other like connected Internet of Things type devices, where upgrades are sent over the air that actually increase capacity or increase capability with something that's already made because they're tinkering with software, with configurations of different things. And it made me think about the digital thread, also engineering versus the shop floor, and that relationship and how much even more important that is whenever you actually have the ability to send updates to the core product the customer bought, even after they own it, not having to make an entirely new product. So I don't know if you want to vamp on that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting.
Now you're just going And it totally like a lot of people say, hey, that's IoT, that's Internet of Things. And you're kind of. And so, yeah, that is kind of like the digital thread, except now you're extending that from inside the enterprise to actually your customer base.
Yeah.
And some of that is great because diagnostic information. And so we see this not just in airframes, but also your vehicles. Your vehicle, guess what? It knows when you need an oil change. And when you get that email from your dealer saying, hey, Isaac, I know that you're ready for an oil change. Would you like to schedule one? And you're like, how in the world did you know? Well, because guess what? You got sensors
Yep.
in your car and it's communicating back to the dealer. The same thing goes with airframes too. But then what if you even take that a step further? You're like, hey, we're noticing that the engines are having a vibration change. Was that vibration change due to parts wearing out? Is that maybe just the natural life cycle of the engine changes its vibration patterns as it wears and gets older? Sometimes that's hard to tell when you just have maybe one connected unit, but what if you have thousands of connected units? Now you can see histories of changes and patterns and you got much more data at your fingertips. And I've seen this too, where you're analyzing the sensor data and now you can do something with it. And you've got this great connected system and you can say, okay, maybe we can actually predict when things are going to wear out and actually be proactive about it to make sure your fleet can be more productive with less downtime. Because guess what? Especially the airline industry, the less downtime an airplane has, the better.
Yep.
So they'd rather do preventative maintenance than drastic maintenance. Oh, and trust me, they don't want drastic maintenance where it leads to somebody having to make an emergency landing somewhere. That's what they want to avoid. So that's some real cost avoidance there too. But it's great. And that's where everything is currently going, is trying to do what's best for the customers and put in sensors. Of course, we're also seeing a over proliferation of this in some areas. So that's always the thing too, is that don't over design it and make it too complicated. And now your connected system is actually more unreliable than it was before. So there is a balance when it comes to that. And especially, I think, obviously for business perspective, there are businesses that are willing to pay for this. On the consumer level, typically the consumer is not willing to pay for it because there's not as big of an advantage for the consumer. But yeah, businesses see that because usually they're maintaining much larger fleets and that information is much more valuable to them because they are not really, the decision makers are the people in charge, aren't the ones operating the vehicles, and therefore they don't necessarily know what's going on. So the more that they're in the know, the better.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. I guess last closing thought, if there's one thing a company could do this month, other than calling Element Consulting, to connect engineering and the floor a little bit, what could they be doing?
I would say they should actually be talking about doing it.
Yeah.
So it's getting the internal knowledge of being like, hey, are we doing things right? What is the current process? Because guess what? That's where usually you have to invest in first, is the business process.
Yep.
And so you're like, what is the objectives that we need to solve? And how do we get better? And so trying to figure that out first is usually key, because that's usually when you come to us where I'm going to ask you off the bat, well, what objectives do you have? What are your current problems? Oh, and then guess what? Also, well, what are the metrics you're trying to achieve as well? Do you have metrics?
Yep.
And so the more you understand your current state, the better off you'll be, because then we can actually make an action plan around it, or you can make an action plan. And that's always the thing too, is some of this is you can't just do overnight. And so the other thing that you can also look at is, how do I put a plan together? Because I know that we can't fix this in maybe 1 year, not even maybe 2 years. How are we going to do the right pace of change for our enterprise?
Yep.
And how can I build a roadmap to get there? And then communicate that to those who actually need to make a decision and actually make it work.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're gonna take off for now, but we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks so much, Isaac.